Sometimes the strongest criticism comes from your own words. Take a listen to what David Eby had to say back in 2022 about autism direct funding, and then contrast that to what we're seeing today. Watch this.
We have been working on making sure that all kids with disabilities, regardless of the nature of the disability, get support in our province. There are many kids who have been left behind. And as part of that work, the government announced the sunsetting of individualized autism funding. Serious concerns were raised about that approach by advocates, by parents, by kids living with autism, and they expressed their very clear desire that that program continue. So today I'm announcing that we will in fact be continuing the individualized funding program for autism going forward. We will also work very closely with advocates for kids with disabilities, all kinds of different disabilities, as well as with the autism community and the representative for children and youth to design our approach going forward. My hope here is that we have a reset where parents are reassured that they'll get the services for the kids that they need regardless of that child's diagnosis. And those parents that have systems in place that are working for their families, that are working for their kids, will be able to continue with those programs. We don't want those parents to face any more stress. We've been listening, and government is responding.
They were keen to listen 4 years ago. What about today? See, again, in 2026, the BC NDP are revisiting this issue. They have announced that they are going to be getting rid of the autism direct funding model and exchanging it, just like they wanted to in 2022, with a more broad needs-based disability platform. The problem is that there are many families who are desperately in need of service and support who are going to take massive cuts in funding. I want you to watch this story.
It's between feeding my family or accessing therapy for my kids.
Sarah Balkenhol is worried what a new funding model will mean for 2 of her 4 children who are on the autism spectrum.
Regression is very common in autism. There will be negative consequences for many families.
The West Kelowna mom says under the new needs-based model, therapy funding for her boys will drop by thousands of dollars, nearly 2/3, because they will be classified as having moderate needs and only an autism diagnosis and nothing else.
To now say your children are not disabled enough to receive funds. And where I struggle with that is that we've done hours and hours of therapy to get to the point we are today.
The biggest concern for me is just like losing the continuity of care that I have established.
Brandy Neff has 3 children on the spectrum and also facing a loss of thousands in therapy dollars.
The services we are receiving are helping. They're giving gains. They're needed. Right? To remove those services means those gains are going to stop.
The province says it is investing an unprecedented $475 million for the new model that will allow thousands more children with different kinds of special needs to access funding for the very first time.
This is really about strengthening the entire system.
Acknowledging that revamping it will mean reduced funding for some.
We anticipate about 20% of children currently receiving funding may see a reduction in their funding. That's about 5,000 children in the province.
Balkenhol says every child with needs should have access to supports, but not at the expense of children who have come to rely on it for their well-being.
We cannot be taking from feed Peter to feed Paul. Just because they're saying that more children are going to be accessing support, that shouldn't come with the children that currently access support reducing their support.
The new model will be phased in over 3 years. Balkenhol says she can't imagine looking at a child in need of therapy and saying,
we need to take that away. It's not needed. It is needed. Therapy is needed.
Claudia Van Emmer, Global News, Kelowna.
This is a life or death situation. That's not blown out of proportion or dramatic. That's the reality. As Western Charterhouse, we've spent this last week meeting with non-government organizations and autism families. And what we've recognized is that if we cannot get the BC NDP to course correct here, the outcome will be an absolute disaster where children and families will get hurt. That sounds harsh, but it's the truth. You know, the BC NDP faced this back in 2022. They wanted to phase out the Autism Direct Funding program and exchange it for a more broad needs-based disability platform. They stopped because they recognized that there were going to be families who got hurt here. Now we're back here 4 years later, and it's the exact same scenario. You know, we could spend hours going into all the problems with this new policy, but one screams so loud, and it's this. When you introduce a system where a child needs to hit certain thresholds in order to qualify for levels of funding, you better make sure that your thresholds are 100% bulletproof and that no children are falling between the cracks, and we are not there with this policy. I'll give you an example. In the old model, a child with autism under the age of 6 would qualify for up to $22,000 per year in support. In the new model, it caps out at $17,000. That's a significant drop, but it gets worse. If you're nonverbal autistic, you'll still qualify for that top level, the $17,000. But here's where we have a major gap. If a child is verbal but has autism and ADHD, they will now qualify for a significantly lower threshold of funding. However, studies have proven that children who have autism and ADHD, even if they're fully verbal, are significantly increased at risk for self-harm. So when I say that this is life or death, it truly is. In 2022, it was public outcry that caused the BC NDP to course correct. And here we are 4 years later. We need people to understand that this new policy position is going to have a massive impact on family and on children, which may impede them from receiving the service they need. So please, share this video to increase awareness.